What happens when we don't look at Islam in its historical context? When you don't follow the timeline of what happened, and you don't look at the reality of the events, it's very, very easy to be misled. Now I want to talk about a completely different aspect. I want to talk about Islam and war. So what does Islam say about war? Is Islam a peaceful religion, or is it a warmongering religion? Is it a religion of violence? Is it a religion of pacifism? What is it? I mentioned to you in the beginning that Islam is a system, and it is concerned with the needs of humanity. And there is no doubt that safety and security is a basic need of humanity. When there's no safety and security, a society cannot function, a house cannot function, an individual cannot function. That's why we have law enforcement people. That's why we have armies. It's not about being violent. It's about protecting your people, protecting your property, and protecting your interests. And since time immemorial, humanity has addressed this need and has always strived to make sure that safety is provided for the people of every state. And every country, every state, every nation is entitled to being safe. Islam could not be a complete system if it did not have comprehensive teachings dealing with defense and safety and security. It would be incomplete. It would be, again, limited to just the mosque and prayers, and that's it, that's what you do. But when it comes to other stuff, there's no answers in Islam. It's not like that. And the analogy that I like to present, and this just came into my head one day, I was mentioning last week, I was just at an airport, and out of nowhere this guy just comes, and he says, "Oh, you're Muslim, that's a very violent religion, and it talks about this, this, this." So I said, "Okay, what country are you from?" He said, "Well, I'm Canadian." I said, "Well, is Canada a peaceful country, or is it a warmongering country?" He said, "No, I think it's a peaceful country." I said, "Do they have an army? Do they have a military? Do they have a navy?" Well, I won't go there, but do they have an air force? Do they have weapons? Missiles, bombs, tanks? That sounds pretty violent to me. That sounds like a lot of doom and destruction. So you say, "No, but that's just to protect ourselves." I said, "Yeah." And there's a way that those assets and that system of defense is used. And there are laws and systems that govern the usage of that. And if those assets, those weapons, those things were to fall into wrong hands, it would be just a catastrophe for everyone. So Islam does not shy away from the teachings that preserve a country's or a nation's safety, security, and interests. And countries, since time immemorial, have waged wars either because they're under attack, or because they're preempting attack, or because an ally of theirs is under attack and they need to go and support them. This is old. It's as old as humanity itself. There's nothing new here. And Islam addresses all of those things. But the fact is, it goes deeper. It explains the terms of alliances. What kind of alliances need to be formed? What kinds of treaties need to be formed? And to what extent are they to be upheld? And when is it okay to break a treaty? Such as if the opposite party breaks their side of it and puts you in direct threat. And how do you partner up with people? And what are the ethics of war? Islam goes that far. It talks about the ethics of war. It talks about how war only takes place between warring armies. There is no involvement of civilians in war. Absolutely none whatsoever. There is no killing of religious figures in war. There is no killing of children and women in war. There is no attacking or destruction of religious sites and sacred mosques, churches, temples, whatever the case may be. There's no destruction of those in war. Islam teaches you the ethics of war. So if you were to sit down with anyone from the military or anyone from the armed forces and speak to them about the ethics, they would provide you with volumes of information about how war is waged, under what conditions, and then how. Islam doesn't shy away from it. It's in the open texts of the Quran. And this is where two things happen. The reader who does not understand where the Quran is coming from will see those passages as very violent. That's one thing. The second thing that happens is people who want to use those for their own violent goals, for their own violent objectives, find material there. And these are two things that we're seeing all the time. So I'm not going to go into the details of the context of specific verses. We do not have time for that. But I would like to talk a little bit about what's happening in the world today and where Islam fits into all of this. When we talk about groups like ISIS, for example, and this is a major concern for us, for me, as a Canadian, because I do not want Canadian youth being recruited for a cause that is A, un-Islamic, and B, it is completely illegal. It's destructive. I don't want to see that. The problem arises when it's presented as some sort of a religious duty or obligation. It's your duty. We all saw in the news that either you pack your bags or you sharpen your knife. Like, what an idiotic statement. They're making it look like or sound like it's some sort of a religious duty to join them. So why is it not a religious duty? First of all, jihad, war. Jihad in the sense of war, in the context of war. It has other connotations as well. Jihad also talks about the efforts to spread Islam by the tongue or through any other means. Jihad has also been used in the Quran for self-struggle, struggling to become more obedient to God. Jihad also has those applications, and it also has a third application in the sense of armed combat. But when it comes to armed combat in Islam, it hasn't just given these verses and left it up to Tom, Dick, and Harry to decide, okay, we're going to wage a war. There are laws. There are institutions. There are processes that must be completed before this system of defense or this system of war can be deployed. It's that simple. And when you don't respect that, then you've given everyone the right to go and call their own war. Like I was saying the other day, what if a bunch of us got together and said, you know what, we don't like such and such country, let's go to war against them. We get our hands on some guns, and we go, okay, it's war. We are declaring war on behalf of Canada on you people. The Canadians are going to say, what a bunch of idiots, where do these guys come from? You don't represent us. We have a process by which war or peace is decided. And when our elected officials will say that no, our defense mechanism is to be deployed, then it will be deployed. This is not everyone, no matter how loyal of a Canadian you are, how much you say, no, we're doing it for Canada. No, you're not. If you're doing it for Canada, then do it through the Canadian system. And if somebody were to take that into their own hands and actually try to carry out an attack on another country, even under the name of Canada, they would be deemed as criminals by Canada and by the other country. And the fact is that they would be apprehended by both. And that's exactly what you have happening today.